Hello everyone. So today I'll be covering a topic on performance dashboard and the report. As a management consultant to any business organization, it becomes very important for you to evaluate the performance dashboard or the performance report prepared by the management of the company. Now, this topic is a very frequently tested topic in the APM examination. It is, say, let's out of the last 5 sittings, probably 3 times this topic would have been tested. And this particular topic comes to around minimum 10 marks to maximum 18 marks in section 1, section A, question number 1, the mandatory question. By the way, all the questions in APM examination are mandatory. So it doesn't matter if it's question 1, 2, or 3, but this particular topic is tested in question number 1 for around 10 to 18 marks. So let us discuss what this particular topic is all about, and as a management expert, what qualities and parameters you must adopt in order to check if the performance dashboard prepared by the company is correct or not. So usually the question is going to be evaluate the company's performance dashboard. That's about it. So let us start. First, we'll discuss about this topic. Like we have 2 slides in this, as you would see in the screen, and post which we will be also solving one past paper question as well. The first thing that you must evaluate in a performance dashboard is the purpose of the dashboard, right? What is the purpose of the dashboard? As in the sense, why is it prepared by the management? Is it to show the performance of the organization? So most of the time, 98% of the time, the performance dashboard prepared by the company is to present the performance of the company to its stakeholders. So for that to understand who are the stakeholders, you need to know the audiences. So is the performance dashboard prepared by the management consultant is for the management, or is it for the shareholders? If it's going to be for the shareholders, then they would be interested in little operational matters as well as the strategic matters. So it has to be a blend of both, whereas for us, for a top management level, they wouldn't be bothered about the operational matters. All that they want to know, the information is all going to be relating to the top management level. So for them, the condensed information needs to be presented. So that is why the users of the performance dashboards becomes very important. To understand the purpose of a dashboard, you need to evaluate a company's mission statement. What is the objective of the company? Why do they exist? Only then you will be able to relate to the purpose of dashboard. Then next thing you need to evaluate is whether the performance dashboard prepared is reviewing the entire organization as a whole, or is it only a particular division. So that is again a case-to-case basis, depending on what the scenario and the requirement is, you need to evaluate it. Is it one-dimensional or multi-dimensional? Which means that is it presenting only a financial perspective, or is it more focused on the non-financial perspective? Now, I will explain this with an example. If it is a profit-oriented organization, then it is definitely only going to focus more on the financial aspect. But then things are changing right now. You're swiftly moving from a financial perspective to also focusing on non-financial perspective. That also brings me to this balanced view of performance, right? The balanced view of performance, which is nothing but your financial as well as non-financial matters. What is the primary and the secondary objective? That's also important. Fitness for purpose, again, you will have to see whether it is serving the purpose for which the management would require this report. And the measures. This measures refers to the KPIs, key performance indicators. So I think this particular topic is very much practical oriented. This is very theory based points and maybe wouldn't make too much of sense just by discussing them. So do not worry. When we do one exam question right in a couple of minutes, you will be able to get a good catch of this particular topic. And I assure you that if you are thorough with this topic, I'm sure that you're going to make it at least the 60% of the mark. So if it is, say, a 10 marker question on this particular topic, then you're going to get at least 6 to 7 marks, because that's how many number of points I have jotted it down for your purposes. So you can do the same in your examination. Anyway, moving on. So this is quickly, I'll just run through these points, the 7 points in this slide, and then we'll move on to the next slide. The purpose of the dashboard, like I discussed, is that you will be able to understand the purpose only if you understand the company's objective, the survival, why the company survives, what are the kind of products and services does it offer. Then who is the reader of the report, who is the audience of the report. Then are we reviewing the entire organization, or is it only a division? Are we looking into both financial and non-financial perspective? So if it is only commercial oriented organization, it is only going to focus more on financial, but make sure if the mission statement is now talking about the quality products, innovations, so you need to have those KPIs as well in your dashboard. Whereas if it is a not-for-profit organization, probably you will have to focus more on non-financial KPIs. What are the primary and the secondary objectives? Does your performance dashboard cover those primary and secondary objective? Fitness for purpose. The main aim of a management was to prepare this report for a certain purpose, and if is that purpose met or not. The eighth one is availability of comparators. Now, what are these comparators? The comparators can be your previous year figures. It can be against a benchmark. It can be against a forecasted. So you can do 3 types of analysis over here, which is one would be a trend analysis, which you do it when you have a previous year information. Then you can do a variance analysis when you have a current year budget and the current year actual figures. And you also can do a predictive analysis, which is with your 2018 forecast. Budget could be a budget, usually it's a budget only. Use of ratios and absolute. Now what happens is sometimes the performance dashboards are overloaded with a lot of numerical data. In that way, if it is too much with numerical data, that becomes difficult for the top management. So imagine you are the CFO of a company and you have been given this report with whole figures in millions or in billions. You are not able to make any decision because you have to find out a GP margin. You may have to find out ROI. So you need to have more ratios, or let me say more relative KPIs rather than having more of absolute KPIs, because absolute KPIs as such itself will not facilitate in decision making, and hence you need to focus more on the what I meant to say is relative KPIs. Now, the next thing that you need to assess your performance dashboard is against the internal and external performance measures, which means do you have both internal benchmarking as well as external benchmarking? Are you comparing your performance with the competitors? Now, wouldn't you not agree with me if I say that if you have to compare your performance with the performance of your competitor, definitely this will facilitate and better your decision making, isn't it? Because you know that where you stand in the industry, what is your market share, how you need to design your future strategies. Do you need to change? Is there a strategic drift or not? So definitely your decision making is much more refined and much more better when you're comparing your performance with an external competitor. Then you have the balanced of reactive and proactive measures. So if there are more reactive measures, so like for example, most of the financial ratios that we have to calculate, the KPIs presented in the report, if there are too many financial, then they are all reactive. Because why? The ratios you compute, the ratios usually at the end of the financial year, isn't it? After a performance is completed for a certain period, only after that would you prepare a ratio. So it is that the performance has been completed, and only after that you're preparing the ratios and trying to analyze. So it's more backward looking, historical. So definitely it is important at the same time to understand what is the GP margin, what is the ROI, what is the EPS, and etc. It is definitely important, but then just having reactive measures will limit the decision making. So there has to be a mix of both reactive as well as proactive. So the proactive measures, for example, could be a future budget, for example. So if a performance dashboard is having a forecasted budget of, say, the next year, then that is a more proactive, measure. Why? Because it will facilitate the user, whether it be a management or a shareholder, to have a better picture as to what in future the performance of the company is going to be like, right? The last parameter against which you will be measuring your the evaluating a performance dashboard is basically the layout or the user friendliness. Which will be again most very generic, sort of like the quality of presentation. The level of clutter, like I mentioned earlier as well. Is it too much overloaded or over flooded with absolute figures, or is it having a mix of both? Does it have ratios? Does it have ranks? Things like that. Availability of explanation. Does the performance dashboard has quality narrations at the bottom of the report, so that it provides additional explanation to whatever numerical data is presented in the report? Prioritization of the measures. This again depends upon what the objective and the mission of the company is. So it could be that they are presented in different headings. The layout, do you need to use line diagrams? So if previous year data is given for more than 3 years, you can probably prepare a line diagram. You can suggest if it is not prepared, does it require the presentation to be in the tabular format, or does it need to be in charts or paragraph format? So that again depends upon so that again is your suggestion to the company. So let us do one past paper question, which I have with me. September-December 2000 and September-December 2017 question. Question number 1, Time Engine products. So we're going to do this 15 marker question. Evaluate why the dashboard in Appendix 1 was award-winning as requested by CEO. So what you're going to do is you need to look at the performance dashboard. This is the performance dashboard, which is Appendix 1. Award-winning performance dashboard. So they've given you the data for 2015, 16 and 17. Remember, we're not even right now have read the objective or the mission of the company. We will do that in a minute. But before that, just let's have a rough view, the layout, just a few generic points which we have discussed already, and pick that up and then put it in an answer, and then also look at what the mission of the company is. Okay. So you have, like I said, the previous year data, you have a budget of the current year, so this will facilitate your variance analysis. You have the growth, which is important because that is showing you the increase in the revenue, say for example from 2016 to 17, and then you have a budget which is of a next year budget. So this is a proactive measure. Very good. So I think this is a pretty good measure. Which is showing that okay, in 2017 if you have made a revenue of 11,500, so we have a trend as well which is increasing from 10,000 to 11,000 to 11,500 in 2017. So you forecast that you're going to have a revenue of 11,776 in 2018, which is a pretty good way to demonstrate the performance of the company in future. Likewise, you have an operating profit margin. So this is not an absolute figure, this is a relative figure. Right? Because how would you compute an operating profit margin? It is the operating profit divided by revenue or the turnover, right? So you don't need to present the operating profit margin. Rather, you need to actually see, how much profits have you made relative to the revenue that you've earned in that particular year. So we can see that it's increasing. Again, good. So you don't have to really comment on whether it's increasing or decreasing. You just have to comment on the KPIs that have been used. So these are KPIs, okay? The presentation is pretty decent because you can see that the KPIs have been classified under different headings. So the bold ones are the different headings. So you have financial, design, manufacturing, delivery, market share, and then you have different KPIs underneath it, which is pretty good. The layout is pretty decent. You have a commentary again, which is, narration is provided. You have an